I'm Norman Liss, and the name of the program is The Way to Go. I invite you to join me each week as we visit places to go and things to do in the Westchester area. Before we speak to our guest today, I want to correct a little electronic glitch that took place. On a show we did a few weeks ago, we put a little quiz on the air and asked people to identify a place. And unfortunately, some of our viewers tell us that it was cut off for some unknown electronic reason. So we're going to repeat it now and give you an opportunity to get your answers into us. So here's the information, and take it from there. So we've timed this little segment that he has now, you see. And so he's actually going to replace what this conversation, which they're taping now, and we'll replace it, and then 1 minute will go by, and then go right into the show.
Very clever. Way to recoup.
Yeah.
And,
so he gives me a standby, and you don't have to worry about that. I know the time.
And what is the prize for the contest?
A book.
Oh.
It's already on the tape, so we don't have to worry.
So much.
It's so simple, and I've learned all this because I've never done a show before. I've been interviewed many times, but I've never done a show before, and I've learned a lot.
Well, did you develop this whole program for your retirement years?
No, it's just something I've been talking about for years.
Well, it's WVOX used to tape. Do they still do that?
Radio.
Yes.
10 seconds. 5, 4.
And now to today's guest. One of the must-see places in Westchester is the PepsiCo headquarters in Purchase with its absolutely fabulous collection of sculpture. Whenever I have a visitor coming in from out of town or from abroad, that's the first place I take them to. I'm delighted today to have as my guest Kay Niles, who is the manager of the PepsiCo art collection. Kay, I'd like to throw a question that's really been in my mind. How does it feel to you to have all this great art in your back lawn, so to speak?
Well, it's absolutely fabulous. It's a privilege that all of us enjoy at PepsiCo. You know, the employees walk in from the side entrances from the parking lot, so they have to see the sculpture on the way in. They also see a beautiful garden, and they live in this pastoral scene, which is the most nourishing kind of environment to be in.
So it's not just a place for visitors, it's certainly, I suppose, primarily a place, a wonderful setting for people to work in.
Well, I have to say that it's a combination. It is a wonderful place to work, and those people who have worked there and left come back always saying, we miss this place. Now, that's a commentary that I think tells you a lot, because there is no other place quite like it for corporate headquarters, and they have enjoyed it for many years now.
Well, there are some people out there who actually don't know where it is and what it is. So why don't we talk a little bit right now about what is the PepsiCo Sculpture Garden and how did it happen?
Well, it's a garden that surrounds the world headquarters of the corporation that was named PepsiCo Inc. back in 1965. It was the merger of Pepsi-Cola Company and Frito-Lay, and the two companies needed more space than they had, so a piece of property was purchased in Westchester County in Purchase, the hamlet, and it had been the Blind Brook Polo Field. But it was not being cared for properly. It was on the market, but not zoned for a commercial building. You may not realize it, Norman, but PepsiCo was the first corporate headquarters to come into that Purchase area.
I didn't know that, and I didn't know that it was a Blind Brook. I'd heard of that, but I thought it was someone's estate that had been taken over.
No, it was a polo field. It had some dilapidated buildings on it. It was not being cared for as far as the grounds, because the club that used to play polo, they had gone out of business, the Westchester Polo Club. And so other companies had looked at the property, but it was not really very inviting because they didn't have the proper zoning. But the chief executive officer of PepsiCo Inc., Donald M. Kendall, is a very courageous man. And he bought the property for the company, or persuaded them that they should buy that, because it was within driving distance of New York City, but it was in a rural setting. And he said, we'll go to the town fathers and we'll explain what we want to do here. Well, of course, the local purchase residents were upset, and rightfully so, because they felt it was a change in the environment for their residential area.
Of course, looking back on those days now, we say what a wonderful idea that it was, because today you drive up on what road to get to the entrance?
Well, you can approach PepsiCo's location by Lincoln Avenue or by Purchase Street,
right,
and it turns into Anderson Hill Road.
Right.
We are actually, the front entrance is on Anderson Hill Road. The side entrance is Lincoln. It is not the best way to enter the property.
So the front entrance is right
Is
across
Anderson
from
Hill.
SUNY Purchase.
Absolutely.
And you drive up this beautiful driveway, and here is the first piece of sculpture you see, which is the building itself, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, that is true. And the architect of the building was Edward Durrell Stone Sr. The landscape architect was Edward Durrell Stone Jr.
Oh, really?
Yes, and those two men, with Donald M. Kendall, were more focused on the aesthetics than almost any other aspect.
And as you come up that driveway, you see on both sides of you, along either side of the road, you see these magnificent pieces of sculpture. And then I suppose you can go around the building either to the right or the left, but to the left on weekends. Is that correct?
We call that the Loop Road.
Uh-huh.
It is a road in the property that surrounds the garden. On the weekends, the reason that is blocked off is that it's a great temptation for people to park on the grass in back of the lake. And that has a certain amount of damage.
Uh-huh.
It will cause damage,
Sure.
and so we ask not
So
to do that.
you drive in, and then there's a designated parking place where you have information that people can get?
During the week and on weekends, if you come into the front entrance, which is Anderson Hill Road, you will see a directional sign. It says Sculpture Visitor Parking. And you turn left at that sign and go to the entranceway for Sculpture Visitor Parking. You see, this is a different kind of building than most corporate headquarters. It does not have underground parking. It has parking out of doors on each side of the building. And so when I talk about entering at the point of Sculpture Visitor Parking, it means go to that point, because otherwise you'll be involved with all the employees'
Right,
cars.
Right. And usually you pick up a map and a self-guided tour.
Yes, it's a self-guided tour. You can go to the little wooden frame building, which is too really simple to be called a sculpture center, but it has been named that. And there you can pick up a list of the sculptors and a little bit of a direction about the garden and a map that shows you where to locate. I usually tell visitors, don't look at the map. Just walk the path and look at the sculpture. And each piece is marked in the ground on a granite stone that is planted in the ground.
But you walk up the path from this little building, and you emerge from the trees, and you see this vast lawn.
That's exactly the way to do it.
And it's astounding.
And you can stay on the path all the way around the property, all the way back up to the front, Anderson Hill Road. It's quite a lot of walking. It's actually 112 acres.
Is it really?
Yes, and the building is in the center of it. But there is so much cultivated garden that it's never tiring, because you're looking at something different all the time. And the garden is now almost as important as the sculpture, I have to admit.
It certainly is beautiful. Let's talk about some of the specific pieces. I know you brought along with you some photographs, and they are just great photographs, and we're going to share them with our viewers today. Who took these great photos?
Well, Malcolm Barron is an art photographer, and when he takes a photograph of a piece of art, he's apt to spend a whole day just getting the composition right. And so I like to tell people that it's Malcolm Varon's
He
work.
does some wonderful.
He's done some other wonderful work.
Let's talk about some of the specific pieces that we have here, and actually describe them.
Well, in entering the garden from the little sculpture center that is actually where the restrooms are for the public, because that's an important aspect of their visiting often, you come into the garden and look across, you will immediately see a Henry Moore sculpture, which is called Double Oval. It's very large, and it has all the qualities of Henry Moore's work. It's in bronze. It's a monumental piece in a garden, and Henry Moore, who has died, unfortunately, now, but he always appreciated the fact that his piece was in a garden, because that's the only way he wanted his things to be seen.
Yes.
And then you look around the circumference of that garden, that back part of the property, and you will again see another piece that is the latest one to be installed, and it's Barbara Hepworth, who was a contemporary of Henry Moore's in England, and she did work in bronze. And this piece came 2 years ago and was installed near his piece. It is a unique example of her work because it was commissioned in London for a building that was eventually torn down, and an art agent acquired the piece and sold it. And so it will never be done again. You know, most bronzes are done 2 or 3 times, sometimes as much as 5.
Really?
Yes, they call it an addition, and you have to understand that once the model is done by the artist, it's important for him to do it more than once, usually because of the cost of his work and the fact that it's his life's work.
Right, right. What are some of the other pieces?
The Barbara Hepworth and the Henry Moore really relate to each other. Then you look around, and in another corner you will see a piece that was commissioned by PepsiCo, Isamu Noguchi. Noguchi was a Japanese-American who lived in Long Island City.
There's a wonderful museum out there now where his works are shown.
And when he was alive, he was invited to come to the garden to look at the situation, and he actually said, I had lunch with him the day that he came, and he said, I'd really like to do a Japanese garden out here. Well, we couldn't let that happen because public was already coming. One of the things we should mention about the public coming to the garden is that it's always open to the public from 9 to 5 every day of the year.
I even see joggers going around.
All the time, yes. They're both employees and neighbors and walkers, especially today. We have many, many local people walking for health purposes, I'm sure. But the Noguchi piece came about through his visit and realizing that he couldn't do a stone garden and take up a large segment of the property. So he did a model of the energy void, it's called, and he presented it, and when it was approved, he took it to Japan and did it in black granite. Now, that's the hardest stone that you can work in, and it's an accomplishment to be able to do a piece of sculpture in black granite. It was brought from Japan, and Noguchi himself put it together. It's in sections, and it's the most interesting piece. If you walk around it, it seems to bend.
Just by the nature of the way it was designed.
His artistry and his craftsmanship in that, it's fabulous. So you have in the garden 20th century works of art. They are sculptures that have been acquired in many different ways, but they've all been acquired by Donald M. Kendall. He has made every decision, every choice, and that is the strength of the collection, because you cannot buy art by committee. If that happens, it usually follows that it goes down to the lowest common denominator of taste.
Yes.
And you cannot build a collection with just that. You know the old cliche, I don't know much about art, but I know what I like. Well, this is a collection that has been built around what has been significant in the 20th century. It started with the Rodin piece, and it was significant because it turned the most perfect-looking Greek sculpture around a bit and began to show the human form with more muscular attributes. And from that, it went into other artists departing from the absolute realism of the 19th century. We have some of the very realistic pieces, but we have the abstractions as well.
Yes.
And I would say that total collection is more, well, it's probably better known for the abstract pieces than the realism.
Do you indicate what this whole collection is really worth? Have you ever done any assessment of that?
Well, Donald M. Kendall is a pragmatist. He's a visionary, and he has made a commitment to this sculpture collection, and he says it will never be sold. So therefore, the art market in the world is the only way you can make an appraisal.
Yes.
It's what the market will buy. And he doesn't see any point in having enormous and elaborate appraisals made. So we simply equate the value of the collection with what we paid for it, because if anything happened to our pieces, we would not try to make a profit on
Sure.
it. We would always replace it with something perhaps of equal significance.
As a matter of fact, because of his involvement and so on, the garden has now been named after him, hasn't it?
Yes, the present chairman and chief executive officer of the company wanted it named for Donald M. Kendall when he asked him to continue the responsibility for it. And that's really why I'm still working there, because I have been his helper, and he is not a person that wants to work with too much extra staff
Right.
assistance.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of the other pieces that are there. There are so many, and we certainly can't show them all, but it would, I think, be fine to show some more.
One of the living artists in the collection is Arnaldo Pomodoro. And from the back part of the property, you see his grande disco, the round piece. Then you see the three very tall columns up near the building. And they are similar in their motif, because Arnaldo has visited us many times. We know him well. And he says that he tries to create in sculpture the essence of the energy inside people and inside any kind of matter or article. And so he has carved openings in the columns and in the disc, and they're easily identifiable.
Now, my recollection is that that disc moved.
Well, it is on a ball bearing in the ground, and it does move, but we have to be very careful not to let it become a top for spinning, because children come on the grounds, and if they know it's movable, they will try to make it spin like a top.
Right.
And that we don't want that to happen, because it does weaken the part.
I'm very impressed with his work, and I feel that they're outstanding in their positioning in the garden itself.
And he's an internationally known artist. He has many pieces in Italy, of course, where he works in Milan, but he's pieces in Japan and pieces all over the country here.
Let's talk about some of the other artists who are there. On the front lawn, there is a George Siegel sculpture of three people sitting on two benches.
And it's really four benches.
Four benches.
Because it's back to back, and it looks like two at one when you look at it from one side, but it's really four benches. Now, those pieces in the front of the property are usually seen as pop art, not George's work so much as Claes Oldenburg's giant trowel.
Yes.
And they are examples of design in everyday living, or in Oldenburg's case, he feels that everything has design, and therefore, if you make it large enough, people will pay attention. So he's famous for many of his everyday symbols that have been turned into monumental sculptures, and that is one, the giant trowel. And we are very proud of that, and he is very pleased, I believe that, to have it in our garden. So we have examples of living artists' work, And the George Segal is just the most endearing piece we have.
What I always like is when I come there and I see people posing, sitting on the bench alongside the pieces of sculpture, which are all white and plaster in his style. And as a matter of fact...
Well, I have to explain his work a little bit, although I'm not really the one that should explain it. I can tell you what I have learned about his method is that he takes the very close friend or neighbor and plasters the entire frame of the person and makes it out of plaster. Now, he eventually wanted to have his pieces out of doors. So in order to do that, he had to convert from plaster to bronze. So he takes the plaster and has it bronzed and then puts it back together and paints it white to look like plaster because he was best known in the beginning for the plaster pieces that he had in museums, the Whitney Museum.
Yes, and he's doing some things in color now, which are very interesting, and some very interesting still life. And
he's always creating, and he's a wonderful man. He lives
in New Jersey.
Yes,
in the studio there.
Right, and he has been shown all over the world. He has pieces everywhere. You'll see this piece, 3 persons on 4 benches. You'll see it in other cities. There are 3 works, 3 editions of it. But we're proud to have that, and George is very pleased that we have it, I think. And
you should have a lot of pride in having all of it. It must be an enviable position to be the manager of this magnificent collection. What does it do for you personally?
Well, it's a personal privilege and satisfaction that I enjoy, and I'm proud of it. I feel that PepsiCo has made a contribution to the neighborhood and a contribution to Westchester County, and this is my home, and I'm proud of all of that. So
I'm proud of it too, but I'm not a participant. You have almost a proprietary interest, and I started this by saying in your back lawn, well, it's your front lawn as well, the back lawn, coming in through that path as we discussed it, and seeing that immense cauldron on your left starts things off. But I always take people around to the garden in the front with the fountains, and it's an entirely different setting. It has an entirely different feeling. What was the concept there?
Well, that's very explainable. Edward Durrell Stone Jr. and his father, Stone Sr., and Don Kendall, developed a campus-style building because being in a residential area, they were restricted as far as high-rise buildings might have been put down, and we wouldn't have wanted that anyway. So our building is only 3 floors above ground, and it is not built around an underground garage either, as I pointed out. So we had to have enough space to house the people, and that meant that 7 buildings had to be built, but they're joined together in each corner.
It's impossible to know that there are 7 buildings there. It looks like one building. Of course, they're cantilevered, so the higher floors are over the lower floors.
And the tower part in between the 2 buildings houses the elevator and the stairwell, and underneath it all is a walkway called the concourse, which does take you from building to building.
But in that front space, with the pools and the fountain...
Well, when the campus building was erected, it created an open space in among those buildings, and that's when Ed Stone Jr. designed those sunken gardens, and they are basically the way he designed them. I don't know whether you realize it, but about 8 years after the building was opened, 8 or 10 years, another garden planner was hired on, and his name was Russell Page. Russell Page was famous on the continent and really all over the world for the gardens that he had worked on during his lifetime. He was brought in as a consultant to ours, and he really embellished the garden plan that Edward Durrell Stone Jr. had laid out.
Now, are new acquisitions being made? Is there a plan to expand? There's a lot of room out there.
Well, there are 2 answers to that. One, I'm sure that Donald M. Kendall would never put so many works in the garden that it would look cluttered or would be in any way diminish the importance of the pieces that are there. And yet, he has said many times, this is not a closed situation. It's open-ended. We would put something down if it's important enough and if it's significant enough. And that is one of the very limiting things, because, of course, there are many, many young artists in the world today who would like to be in the collection. And the difficulty there is that it's not possible to accommodate them all, and you cannot accommodate friends of friends, and you have to buy according to a quality, a standard that you've established. And when that collection was started, it was museum quality, and we feel we've kept to that. And although we're not buying work all the time, if we ever buy again, it will be museum quality.
What's your favorite?
It's difficult to say. I like them all so much, but I think the Max Ernst is more fun. Max Ernst was during the Surrealist period in Europe. He did more works on paper and canvas than he did in sculpture. But he was a Surrealist, and he left behind the Capricorn, which is our piece, and it has been done 3 times, and so you will see it. No, actually, I think that's been done 5 times. You can see it in the Pompidou in Paris. You can see it in the National Gallery in Washington, and the de Menil collection in Houston, and the Nasher collection in Dallas, as well as at PepsiCo. And it is a fun piece because it takes the human form and completely modifies it into an imaginary form.
Well, I think that anybody should just take a great trip, walk around, drive around, and see this absolutely fabulous collection. And I thank you very much, Kay, for joining us today. My guest today has been Kay Niles, who's the manager of the PepsiCo Art Collection in Purchase, and I urge you to go to see it. And I also urge you to send in your answer to the quiz. The address is Norman Liss, care of Westchester Cable, 100 Martine Street, White Plains 10601. And now this is Norman Liss saying thanks for joining us. See you next week. And in the meantime, enjoy yourself.